Hey, welcome back to Ye Old Foundry, ladies and gentlemen. Well, this video is a follow-up on the last video where I, on the whiteboard, described how several ways you can ram up a bell. This time I'm going to ram up the bell, and hopefully very soon thereafter I'll be pouring this bell. But there's several things I'll be ramming up during this this video. Principally, I want to work on the bell first and get it ready. So I'll go ahead and it'll be almost like you're standing right over there looking this way at my ramming up. I hope it works out better than the one time I was totally off target. Excuse me. Let me aim you down, and that should certainly get the entire ramming up action. Let's see, I think I'll give myself a little more, yeah, better angle. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do it, ram this up if you're making, bronze one. This is going to be the the key phrase on this is try not to generate any turbulence whatsoever, so that you can, have a nice clean bell, and not even on the inside have the dross float up against the inside of the green sand core. Okay, certainly we hope none of that will happen. Okay, get your bell. Give yourself plenty of room to carve in the runners and end gates. Okay, this is the drag. I'm rounding up the drag first. Give yourself plenty of room. Looks like it's good. Put a little bit of parting powder in there so none of this sand will stick. Okay, got myself a new riddle. While I was not making videos, I was trying to buy stuff that would make the job easier. Now this is what you call making the facing sand. This is the sand that will be in direct contact and making the face of the mold cavity inside the flask. Okay, get all this riddled down in there for facing sand, and it looks like we got the majority of it good. And don't forget, try to use your fingers to make things stay in place for when you ram. Well, but what I mean by that is use your fingers as little rammers. Try to make everything nice and solid. It's not a good idea to try and do that against the bell, because this stuff will just fall out. Okay, but as much as you can, try and get this ready that way. Okay, now there isn't really enough there for me to strike. Okay, so I'm not going to try this time. Not strike. That's not the word I'm supposed to be using. I'm supposed to be saying score. Score the sand. Don't want to do that. Okay. Now we're going to use the small rammer for the first time actually making a mold. Now, as you can see, it pretty much makes an almost flat surface on the inside here using that peen. Well, this time I do have to store it so that the next layer can bond with this layer. Try to stay away from the facing sand on the bell, because we don't want that to be displaced. Okay, try to spread it out as best you can. Try to expose where the actual top of this is so you don't hit it hard with the rammer. Okay, now I do have the air LP air on right now, and it's gonna overload your senses if it comes on while I'm working, because this rammer is going to be utilizing a lot of air. Okay, scratch this layer so it'll bond with the next layer and won't stay a separate layer all by itself. Spread it out. Then ram it. Finally filled up. Okay. This should be the last layer. Get my strike strike off the excess sand. See, now this is the reason why you use the riddle, because you never know when something's going to be in your sand and might get up against the mold cavity. Well, this feels, I don't know, like some kind of a piece of paint or something. Okay, so this is the drag. Now I got to give it some nice, let's see how far that down goes. That goes pretty good. Making vent holes so that the sand, or this portion of the sand, can carry away the water vapor and anything else that might generate a some kind of vapor inside the mold cavity. Okay, now where'd it go? There it went. A lot of board. Okay. After I turn this over, we'll go ahead and reclaim a lot of this sand, because I don't have hundreds of pounds of sand in here. So I got to try and make sure I use that all up nice and easy. Well, yeah, I'm gonna use the 3 clamp method to flip this over. It's slightly heavier than I want, and I don't want anything to move on me. Okay. So we bring this in. Touch that there. And that one, for those of you who haven't yet seen the video on the 3 clamp method of turning your molds. Now, if I wanted to, I could have gone ahead and just brought it out over here and flipped it over. But this is not one of those projects where I want to show off and maybe mess up the entire project by dropping it or anything. Okay, so this is being held in place. This feels loose. Okay. Now we get the 3rd clamp. Now what you're doing is you're turning things 180 degrees. That's holding that down. And just going to hold this down. Take the last one off. Put that over here. Now, see that's tight, that's tight. And now you can put it right back on the ram up cross beam here. I think I'm on top of some sand. Okay, that's better. Now let's see here. Where did I put you? Oh, there you are. I don't want this stuff to all dry out, because I want to be able to use it for the other molds. Okay. Now my idea for putting this, making this thing in here as a kind of a sand reservoir was basically going to be for Petrobond sand, because Petrobond sand doesn't dry out on you. Okay, but so far I haven't done a real good job on making the Petrobond sand. Something is different with this, either the Petrobond, the oil, maybe I've got too fine a grain for the sand. I'll have to experiment more. Once I get that formula all set up, it should be fixed and working real good. But in the meantime, I'm not using this as a place for holding the sand, because if I put the green sand in there, it would only dry out. Then I'd have to rework it all over again, another step that we don't need. Okie dokie. Here's the drag. Getting ready. Let's put you on there. Trying to get rid of the sand that's on top of the wood here, because the wood is supposed to be sitting on wood, not on wood, sand wood, so that it can be clamped down nice. That's one thing I didn't do, is I didn't get a blowgun. Yeah, this will do. I had to double check and make sure that I had the appropriate fitting on this. Okay. Put this over here. Oh yeah, that's nice and hard as compared to the hand rammed stuff. Okay. Now, why is it I have the pins on the drag instead of having the pins on the cope that the pins would go in to the drag? Well, the thing is, yeah, that would work. That would still make these line up, but when it's time to take apart this from the drag, you won't be able to do this if they're the opposite way. You can lift it up nice and easy by squeezing your hands like this. You have that clear, and then you can set it. And I should make room for this. But at first, let's put some parting powder in here. Okie dokie. Now this will go down inside there. I was afraid that this was too large, so I won't have to ram it with a piece of wood. This was what I was going to do, ram it around that. So this is nice and hard. It's being made hard by the pneumatic rammer. I'm going to try and ram up this green sand core without putting supports in there, and we'll see how it works. Okay, if it breaks up, then I'll just start this portion over again. So I want to lock this to where this doesn't rise when I'm trying to ram up. I'm sure I told you sometime in the past, this is green sand. That's the only, what do you call, constituents of this recipe is sand, bentonite, and water. That's it. So, but if you leave this out, it'll all dry up, and you got to go through the step of getting your sand ready for ramming again. You got to get it all nice and sticky, or you know, to where it's strong enough to go to bond together, the sand grains, I mean. So here we go, the facing sand is ready. I put my tiny little rammers into action. Okay. I have a sneaking suspicion I'm going to have to make sand if I have more than one of these 12 by 12 flasks made, because I'm not running out yet, but I'm very close. I'm not real sure that I rammed that hard enough way down inside. We'll find out when I take it apart, because it's certainly hard right now. Okay, scribe it off. As you can probably see, I'm getting my sand out of a plastic container, and what that's doing for me is keeping this stuff moist in between ram ups. there's the disadvantage of using a pneumatic rammer. You won't be able to talk at all while it's trying to replenish the air. Okay. I was going to ram up some other things at the same time as this, but I don't believe I'm going to have enough sand to ram anything other than this up. Okay. We spread it out a little bit. I already did score that, I believe, so it'll bond. Boy, does that feel like old time using that rammer. And we don't have bunches of sand down there. Let's see if I've got enough up here to finish this. Alrighty. Strike it off. It's one of the easiest materials I've used. Well, now we used to use like one of those old blades off of a planer to just cut through this, but this I think works just a bit better. Okay, let's see if I can cover that sand before it dries out. Now the next question is, when I lift the cope up, is the green sand core going to stay in place? Okay, vent all over. Oh yeah, you can really tell how much more solid this stuff is after ramming it up with a pneumatic rammer. Okay, now I know, where are you? There you are. I know about where I want to run the down sprue. I remember the thing is in the middle, okay? And I'll go down here. Yeah. here's something that old foundryman showed me. It's great, especially useful when it comes to trying to make your vibration and turbulence minimized as much as possible. And basically it just uses the idea of a pouring block, but it's built into the cope, because you got plenty of sand in here. It's almost all sand. There ain't nothing in the cope. What you do is here, that'll work. Take the edge off like the machinists do on their projects, and yeah, that's the right one. Nearby, you're going to make a little pouring basin. Yuck. Oh well. That should have stayed in. Okay, where's my... There it is. Maybe the air will push it out. We'll find out. Anyway, I grab this, try to make it. Anyway, I'm making a reservoir right here in which I will pour, okay? And once I get this all out of the way, I need to leave this open just a little bit. Where is that? Let's see if I can help this thing grab it by pushing it against the walls. And it did it. Okay, good. See? Okay, so what this is about is that you pour into here, you make a channel to there, and it'll come up nice and smooth. Any turbulence that happens, it'll happen in here. It'll fill up nice and smoothly. It'll follow the channel that I'm making now. You have to give it enough of a channel for it to go nice. Cleaning out the basin, pouring basin. In this case, it is the pouring basin. Too big. Let's use this other one. I bought this while I was recuperating from my I wouldn't call it an illness, as more of a pain in a rear. And if you were my wife, you would know why I use that phrase. Smooth everything out as best you can. So that none of the sand will be moved by the molten metal. So you see how you fill in here, it comes up and it traces over this way, and then it nice and easy follows the curvature or the angle into the mold cavity. All right, now here comes the big rolling of the drums of suspense. We'll the green sand core stay with the cope, or will it just fall out because I didn't put any kitchen? There you go. All right, because I didn't put any mold supports to support it. Now I figure that it's fair odds that rammed it hard enough that it will stick. I mean, it'll have enough strength to hold, but if it falls right away, then I didn't. And this is the bad thing about this. You have to get used to putting mold supports in there. Now, I unlock it so I can take it apart. And I found some more sand back here, which I wasn't paying attention, so I got to get that into the box. I'm getting drifty in my old age. Where is... It's not up there. I know I just had it. And is it still in here? No, it's not. Alright. Need to find my dustpan. Dustpan. I know I set it somewhere. This is bothersome. It's not up there, it's not there. I don't see it there. Maybe it fell someplace. No, it's where I put it. Because of the garbage I threw away. Problem with old age. You get real drifty without trying. There, now it's in visible sight. Now I should be able to pick it up, put it over here. Should lay it on its back. Drum roll, please. And it broke off. The good news is that most of it did stay in place. It's nice and hard. Okay. What I'm gonna have to do is just make something. How hard is that? Huh. I'm wondering if I can just set that in place and then make it stick that way. Okay, there you are. Let's see if this monkey shit is still pliable enough for me to use. And it is. That turned out good inside. But now I gotta do it over again because it broke as I was lifting it, right as it dropped. All right. Okay, where does that go now? Yep, right there. Okay, so all I gotta do here is knock this stuff out. I should have this. Oh yeah. It breaks apart pretty good. Okay, the parting powder, you can put too much, but that's only if you're trying to replicate some fine detail in your pattern. I could use this as a soldier. How long is this? Okay. But I don't think I will. I have raw materials over here that I can use to make a gagger. Come on. You can come out. Little coffee drink. Get me a pair of pliers. So if you remember rightly, a gagger is a Z-shaped, I guess, piece of metal that you can put in here to hold your green sand, like the kind that's hanging. I think the only reason why that didn't work is because I didn't ram it all the way down here. I didn't go down in here first and ram it and then do the rest. I went did all that and tried to ram as close as best I could in there, and it didn't do the bottom. Okay. What we need now is to make a couple of gaggers that should help support the weight of that green sand core. Sorry about that noise. Now, let me double check and make sure this camera is aimed enough. It doesn't look like it's aimed good enough. Let's give it a little bit better. Anyway, I have to get now, when you're redoing things like this and you haven't run it through the muller, if you have a muller, to break those clumps up, you got to make sure you break up the clumps as best you can. Okay. And just as a precaution, I don't want this lifting up because I rammed the sand so hard that it squeezed out in between these two. Okay. Scratch. Now, my putting this in here that's not the only thing that happens. But if I just left it like that, the weight of the core, green sand core, might be enough to where it just forces these to slip through the sand. Well, I'm not going to be doing it that way. I'm going to break apart these clumps that I made with my hand. Break it apart with my hand, in other words. And spread it out and ram it up. Now, believe it or not, I did not set this up to where that green sand core would automatically fall out, just to show you how much of a pain in the rear this is. It actually did it its own self. And at the same time, illustrated to you why you need to have a mold support. If you do it this way, if you're trying to make it out of a copper-based alloy like brass or bronze, where you have to try and keep dross from forming with your pour while you're pouring. Well, good news and bad news on that LP air condenser. The bad news is it makes a lot of noise. Good news is I don't have to talk while it's going, because it'd be a waste of time to try and talk. Anyway, good reason why we do these little teaching sessions is that we get things done right after a fact. Okay, now making sure that I don't forget to vent like I've done before in the past. Get in such a hurry that I forget a step, as everybody who has done before. People get anxious about getting the things done. Okay, now as you can see, we've got a little bit of a thing here. And I've got to undo that enough to where this can go in. Okay. I don't want to tear things up, so I might as well just do this. Now, as I said before, you can't just leave this two pieces of metal stuck in the sand, because if the green sand that you're trying to support, green sand core that you're trying to support is heavy enough, it'll just pull these smooth pieces of metal through the sand and allow the green sand core to drop. What you do is when you have a gagger, many times what you'll do is you'll have a gagger up here that's already got a bend formed into it. Like if you bought a bunch of professional gaggers, then you just ram it up and you put this underneath that bend so that it'll be supported. In this case, if there's any force being exerted, it'll be took up by the mold support, which would be transferred to this cross beam, which would be transferred to the edge of the flask, which is considerably stronger than any green sand core could possibly be. Okay, now the next thing, I know that it was approximately here that I put the down sprue. Okay, and there's that. I'm still going to try that pouring basin that was shown to everybody by old foundryman. Now this time I don't want it. Where'd you go? I am becoming drift okay, so. Yep, there it is. This time I don't want anything to be left down inside. So I'm going to ram it up inside this tube, making the sand grip like that on the inside. That's deep enough. Here's the double ender with a slick, and this is why it's called a slick, but it slicks things down, tries not to have anything fall into the mold cavity. It's as important not to have sand fall into the mold cavity as it is for machinists to clean up the ways after they turn cast iron. Okay, see if I can smooth that out a better. Okay, now we go over here. Son of a gun. I guess I flushed it out. Trying to make sure that all the loose sand is now no longer loose. Okay, trying to smooth out the path that the metal will be going in. Okay. Okay, I've vented it, bent that over, made that. Didn't do this. That's why you go through a mental checklist so you don't forget something. Now let's see. Now I'm not going to do it over again. If this falls out again, I think I've illustrated why mold supports is important. Mold supports are important. Let's see if I can get this. Matter of fact, this needs to stay out of the way. Need to put you over there. Crossing fingers. Oh, crossing fingers that I remembered to unlock it. Wow, I thought for a second there I really rammed this hard. Okay. We'll try it again. Upsy daisy. Okay, there we go. Now I'd love to have this lay flat so the amount of time that the green sand core is hanging is minimized. Part of it came out. No, you know what? Part of it fell. It's not staying in there. Must have been over here somewhere. Okay, I know of a way to, that's battery number 2 is used up, and I have just this one that's in the camera right now, so I'm going to have to hurry my butt up. Alright, let's see if I can gather up some of this sand before it dries out. Yeah, there's the part of the bell green sand core that fell out. Okay, let's see if we can add a little bit. Okay, now let's okay. Now, as I'm sure you've seen, I put a little patch of unrammed sand where the wound is over there. Well, I'm not being a very good teacher because I haven't shown you exactly what I did, so I'm going to move you over to this place here. Very much hope that it's good. Okay, what I did, there was a small chunk about the size of, let's say, the end of this. Small chunk had fallen off, probably because I went and did all this number, you know, back and forth and back and forth. But what I did is I got a handful of sand like this and pushed it on it, just enough for it to hold. Let's see, we don't need a big wrap. And there it is. It has formed the part that was had fallen away. Okay, that feels fairly hard, but it will be loose enough where when the metal collapses against it, it'll crack it up and crush it up and won't retard the solidification process of the bell. Okay, now we can move you back over here. This one here shouldn't be very much of a teaching moment for you, because you can see where my gates and runners and everything is going to be. Now this is a fairly thin bell, okay? Let's see if I can smooth out that defect that I manufactured. The good news on this portion of the bell, you can grind off the excess, like this side bump right here. I don't know. Oh yeah, that must have been this thing coming in contact with it when I was lifting it. Okay. Now this is the next in gate or gate. I could, come to think of it, you make use of this for a splash basin. And rats again. Oh well. Doesn't need to be that far. And don't forget, the runner's got to be considerably deeper than the in-gate. You need to have the metal, any dross that you're going to be manufacturing following the runner all the way to the end so it doesn't go inside the mold cavity. Pretty good sand. I like this sand. It really, you know when it's not adhering to a pattern. That needs to be just a bit deeper. Let's see if I can get this stuff out of the way. Looks like everybody's out of there. Okay, let's see if I can do that again. It needs to be considerably deeper. Than the runner to absorb the forces of turbulence. Hey, good deal. A little less digging. Okay, there you are. Okay, smoothing out the splash basin, smoothing out the runner and the in gates, Remember, this portion that attaches to this void right here, it can be filed off and ground down and so forth. Now, the good news about this sand is that without trying to, I chose the wrong bentonite. It's the kind of bentonite that gets stronger as it gets hotter or dries out. So, come on now. There we go. Now, let's see if we can smooth it out a little bit better. Just like machinists, they got to take those sharp edges off their projects. I got to take sharp edges off the sand so it doesn't break off when hit by the hydraulic pressure of the mold, or rather of the pour. And this is a nice, soft brush. It's the kind you use for actually doing painting on a canvas. And the only thing left to do is to hope I didn't get a bunch of dust on you. Is to put it together and pour it. Okay, so now I'm going to get this this video put on YouTube, and the ones who like to make brass bells, you know how to do it now. The only thing that's different between the I'm going to get you off of this up here. Okay. The difference between pouring it this way and having the cope have the green sand core, and it's the other way around when you're trying to pour non-dross or less dross producing materials. You would have, this is the cope, and you'd have the green sand core merged in with that. So then this would never be picked up, so you don't have to worry about this cracking off at the base and falling out. Okay, this is much simpler, much easier to do, but it's not going to solve anything with brass and bronze bells, because you're going to have a lot of dross being formed this way if you have brass and bronze. You just got to do it the way I did it here. Minimized the amount of tumbling. The heck, it's nice and hard, boy. I'm sure glad I got this rammer. Anyway, so now you know how to do it for brass and bronze. You also know how to do it for like aluminum and cast iron, because all you got to do is just make this the drag, make this the cope. And when you make this the cope, all you're going to have to do to make a, where did it go? Where did he go? There it is. All you have to do to make a entry point in the mold cavity is that you take your sprue cutter, go down here and cut a hole straight through, and there's your opening. Now, I wouldn't just pour straight down that opening. I do like I did on this one that old founderman showed me, is make a pouring like a reservoir, have it connect over to the down sprue, and just pour it that way. You'll be minimizing the possibility of the any turbulence or any trapped gases in, especially aluminum, that might take place if there's too much turbulence. Anyway, I better sign off before this thing, the battery dies, because this is the last battery I got. So to everybody that knows what I'm saying, Liberty Call. And I'm going to leave this open and let this dry out to maximize its strength before I put this together. If I'm lucky, when I come in here tomorrow, it'll be so strong that I won't have to worry about putting it together. Because don't forget, this system has this hanging all the time when it's put together, hanging. And if anybody kicks it, anybody hits it somehow, it just might crack off. Okay? So, be careful once you make this. But if you make it to where you have a mold support in there, this won't move on you. And when this fills up, the molten metal will add a certain amount of buoyancy to that core, so it won't have all that much gravity pulling at it anymore. And then once it solidifies, bingo bango, you've got a bell. Okay, Liberty Call. Please leave any kind of messages or comments at the comment area, and give us a positive thumbs up, thumbs down. Please, if you're going to do a thumbs down, tell me what you're doing the thumbs down for. Okay, so that if it's a camera problem or something like that, I can correct things that are bad. All right. Until next time, this is Sand Rammer from Ye Old Foundry signing off.